Good day. Jay Scott with Great Scott Audio Productions for Bitten by Books Book Bites. Today, what I'm going to be doing is Boneshaker by Cherie Priest. It's the very first in her Steampunk series. A lot of fun. It's the alternate history kind of thing is a lot of fun for me. But with the steampunk thing, it just adds so much, and Cherie really captures honestly the taste of it. You can taste the kind of grittiness and just the leather and steam and metal and oil and just all of it. It really appeals to me. As I'm in the car business, and for some reason it has that taste or feel to me. But once again, what I'm going to do is start with the prologue, which gives you kind of a taste and pulls you in. It's the setup, and so we're going to go with a little bit of that this morning, and on we go. From Unlikely Episodes in Western History, Chapter 7, Seattle's Walled and Peculiar State, Work in Progress, by Hale Quarter, 1880. Unpaved, uneven trails pretended to be roads. They tied the nation's coasts together like laces holding a boot, binding it with crossed strings and crossed fingers. And over the great river, across the plains, between the mountain passes, the settlers pushed from east to west. They trickled over the Rockies in dribs and drabs, in wagons and coaches. Or this is how it began. In California, there were nuggets of the size of walnuts lying on the ground, or so it was said, and truth travels slowly when rumors have wings of gold. The trickle of humanity became a magnificent flow. The glittering western shores swarmed with prospectors pushing their luck and pushing their pans into the gravelly streams, praying for fortunes. In time, the earth grew crowded, and claims became more tenuous. Gold came out of the ground in dust so fine that the men who mined it could have inhaled it. In 1850, another rumor, winged and sparkling, came swiftly from the north. The Klondike, it said. Come and cut your way through the ice you find there. A fortune in gold awaits a determined enough man. The tide shifted and looked to the northern latitudes. This meant very, very good things for the last frontier stop before the Canadian border. A backwater mill town on the Puget Sound called Seattle after the native chief of the local tribes. A muddy village became a tiny empire nearly overnight as explorers and prospectors paused to trade and stock up on supplies. While American legislators argued over whether or not to buy the Alaska Territory, Russia hedged its bets and considered its asking price. If the land really was pocked with gold deposits, the game would absolutely change. But even if a steady supply of gold could be located, could it be retrieved? A potential vein, spotted intermittently but mostly buried beneath 100 feet of permanent ice, would make for an ideal testing ground. In 1860, the Russians announced a contest offering a 100,000 ruble prize to the inventor who could produce or propose a machine that could mine through the ice in search of gold. And in this way, a scientific arms race began despite a budding civil war. Across the Pacific Northwest, big machines and small machines were tinkered into existence. They were tricky affairs designed to withstand bitter cold and tear through turf that was frozen diamond hard. They were powered by steam and coal and lubricated with special solutions that protected their mechanisms from the elements. These machines were made for men to drive like stagecoaches, or designed to dig on their own, controlled by a clockwork and ingenious guiding devices. But none of them were rugged enough to tackle the buried vein, and the Russians were on the verge of selling the land to America for a relative pittance, when a Seattle inventor approached them with plans for an amazing machine. It would be the greatest mining vehicle ever constructed, 50 feet long and fully mechanized, powered by compressed steam. It would boast 3 primary drilling and cutting heads, positioned at the front of the craft, and a system of spiral shoveling devices mounted along the back and sides would scoop the board through ice, rocks, or earth back out of the drilling path. Carefully weighted and meticulously reinforced, this machine could drill an almost perfect vertical or horizontal path, depending on the whims of the man in the driver's seat. Its precision would be unprecedented, and its power would set the standard for all such devices to come. But it had not yet been built. The inventor, a man named Leviticus Blue, convinced the Russians to advance him a sum great enough to gather the parts and fund the labor on Dr. Blue's incredible bone-shaking drill engine. He asked for 6 months and promised a public test display. Leviticus Blue took his funding, returned to his home in Seattle, and began to build the remarkable machine in his basement. Piece by piece, he assembled his contraption out of sight of his fellow townsmen, and night by night the sounds of mysterious tools and instruments started to neighbors. But eventually, and well before the 6-month deadline, the inventor declared his masterpiece complete. What happened next remains a subject of much debate. It might have been only an accident after all, a terrible malfunction of equipment running amok. It may have been nothing more than confusion, bad timing, or improper calculations. Or then again, it might have been a calculated move after all, plotted to bring down a city's core with unprecedented violence and mercenary greed. What motivated Dr. Blue may never be known. He was an avaricious man in his way, but no more so than most, and it's possible that he wished only to make the memory and run. That he only wished to take the money and run, with a bit of extra cash in his pocket to fund a larger escape. The inventor had recently married. As tongues did wag, his bride was some 25 years his junior, and there was much speculation that perhaps she had a hand in his decisions. Perhaps she urged his haste, or she wished herself married to a richer husband, or perhaps, as she long maintained, she knew nothing of anything. What is certain is this. On the afternoon of January the 2nd, 1863, something appalling burst out from the basement and tore a trail of havoc from the house on Denny Hill to the central business district, and then back home again. Few witnesses agree, and fewer still were granted a glimpse of the incredible bone-shaking drill engine. Its course took it under the earth and down the hills, gouging up the land beneath the luxurious homes of wealthy mariners and shipping magnates, under the muddy flats where the sprawling sawmill, and down along the corridors, cellars, and storage rooms of general stores, ladies' notion shops, apothecaries, and yes, the banks. Thanks for listening and enjoy.